What's up, everybody? Welcome back. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, thank you for stopping by. If you're listening on the podcast version, thank you for tuning in. Doc hosting. Got my special guest here. Maybe he's not as special because we've been hanging out a lot, but a newly dad for the second time, a guy that is plugged into the betting community and is here to win you some money. It is Mr. Nick's Picks. What's going on, sir?
Wife just had baby number 2. Life has been crazy. I looked like a homeless man about 30 minutes before I got on with you and made myself look a little bit more presentable for anybody watching on YouTube. So, yeah, life's been crazy, but it's awesome. My wife's a champ.
Nick is dedicated to this because in his spare time from being a dad with a kid that's less than a week old, he's hopping on the YouTube channel and telling you how to win money. And last week we went over some player props and we mostly agreed on a lot of them. And there was some really good value and a lot of these are down. And, Nick and I text off air and we got in some Rodon bets before Bovada pulled those down. And I think that's a big thing with these betting accounts is that if you find news, subscribe to some of these sources that are breaking them because you can sometimes get in before the books. Yep. And that's really how you can profit from there because once the bet is placed, a lot of times they can't cancel it, especially if a player only misses a short period of time, but could affect their player props. But enough about last week. This week, we are hopping in and we're talking about some team props, some over-unders, and Nick and I are not going to agree on everything. I can promise you that. Nope. So I have Nick's picks right here. These are the ones that he's going to go over in more detail. But Nick, do you want to tell the who's ever listening the entire betting card that you have?
Yeah, so I think it might be 13 team props for the season. So I'll just go over them quick. I'm not going to talk about every single one of them today, but I have Twins to win the AL Central at 3-1. I have the Braves to win the National League East, Cardinals to win the National League Central. I have the Rays to make the playoffs, and I have this one's a cool one, is Rays first to 10 wins. That's
you got it. Before you tell other people, you have to tell me that because I saw it and I've thought about betting something like that for fun, but I need to know why the Rays.
Okay, I got you. We'll go into detail into that later. So yeah, Rays first to 10 wins. Then Phillies under 89.5 wins. Marlins over 75.5 wins. Diamondbacks over 74.5 wins. Padres over 92.5 wins. That one's a 2-unit play. Giants over 80.5 wins. Mariners over 87.5 wins. Rays over 88.5 wins. That is a 3-unit play. That's my biggest one for the season long. Orioles over 76.5 wins. Yankees over 94.5 wins. Lots of AL East. Red Sox over 77.5 wins. We're going to disagree on that one. Pirates under 67.5 wins. White Sox under 83.5 wins. And the Royals under 69.5 wins. So that's my full team props card.
You bet like half the league.
Oh, yeah, dude. I go crazy.
Not as I think I went crazy for player props like you do for the team ones. So Nick, I'm going to start out. I have your card up here, and you're going to tell me why Marlins over 75.5 wins is a good play, and then I'm going to completely destroy you and tell you why it's not.
After this rundown, you're not going to have a single. There's not a hole in this argument.
Okay? I literally can't wait.
So Marlins over 75.5 wins. I believe that was the line. Yep. Minus 120. I have that. That's 2 units. That play is. I might make it 3 if the line's still up. So the Marlins won 69 games in 2022. And so a couple little bullet points I have, and I'll go into all of them. But so I have the new pickoff rules and the new base sizes, which base sizes don't matter a whole lot. It's more so the pickoff rules and just how the league is going to be changing a little bit with more teams running. Miami was second in stolen bases in 2022 with 0.75 per game. 5 of the 9 members of the starting lineup for the Marlins are 50th percentile or above in sprint speed. That's Jazz Chisholm, Gene Segura, John Birdie, Nick Fortes, and Brian De La Cruz. So that's one thing. I think the Marlins are going to run wild this year. So and I'll get to more of the different things. You're probably wondering, like, why are you talking about speed first? It's just the order that I wrote all these things in. So I'll do it a little bit out of order. I'll talk about the obvious one now, is the elite rotation that they have. Sandy Alcantara, or Alcantara, obviously the unanimous Cy Young Award winner last year. They have Jesus Luzardo, who was my Cy Young pick for the National League this year, 75-1. Edward Cabrera, which on my Twitter every week we celebrate King Eddie Day. Love me some Edward Cabrera. Trevor Rogers, who was a mess last year. We talked about him in the other podcast too. They signed Johnny Cueto. They have Braxton Garrett as some depth in case those arms do get hurt, which they have been quite a bit. Marlins pitchers have gotten hurt. And Yuri Perez is in the minors and could be coming up during the season. And then possibly Sixto Sanchez. There's been some Sixto sightings lately. He's been getting into shape. There's been some stuff about him. Maybe he can have a bullpen role. So it doesn't quite make the rotation, but I figured I'd add Sixto's name in there if anybody remembers that 2020 run with him. So another thing is Miami's schedule. All right. So last year, 57 of their games were versus the Braves, the Phillies, and the Mets last year. This year, just 39 of them. So they're gonna have a lighter schedule than last year. And another thing I wrote down is that they have an average offense. And now, Doc, you're probably like, no, they do not. And everybody listening is like, no, the Marlins do not. So last year, before Jazz got hurt, they were averaging 4.37 runs per game. That was 12th in the majors. Jorge Soler was hurt most of the year. Jazz, obviously, I just said, was hurt a lot of the year. They added Luis Arias, the American League batting title winner, to the lineup. They added Gene Segura. So this lineup has an awesome blend of contact, power, and speed. So I really like this lineup, not to be an elite lineup. Like I said, it's an average offense, and that's all it needs to be.
Gosh, Nick, I'm going to poke so many holes in your argument. Oh my gosh.
Please, I'm ready. I'm ready for him. I'm ready. All right.
All right. First of all, do you know the last time the Marlins won over 75.5 games?
No, tell me.
2017. Do you know the last time the Marlins won 80 games to even give you a little bit of a cushion?
I don't need 80 games. I need 76.
2010. So the times they've cleared it, they've won 77 twice and 79. So even if they do clear, it is not a sweat-free, like if you bet the over on the Sacramento Kings this year. So you're definitely not worrying about that. You said there was a good blend of power and speed. Nick, do you know who their home run leader was last year?
Their home run leader last year was
Jesus Aguilar. Guess how many he hit?
Is it like 20?
15. Their leader in home runs last year had 15. Do you think John Birdie at age 33 years old is going to have another 41 stolen base season?
In this environment, yeah, I do. He could still 40 bases again.
John Birdie had 41 stolen bases in 102 games. I doubt even with the new stolen base rule that he reaches that. This is just me being skeptical from there. Yeah, Jazz Chisholm had an off-season or had a back procedure, wasn't a surgery before the end of the regular season, but also had off-season core surgery. I am not banking on him being necessarily aggressive on the base pass. I am banking on some regression from Sandy Alcantara. I do not think he follows up a Cy Young season. And I think if for some reason he spends time on the injured list, which he has been one of the epitome of healthy, that the Marlins are in trouble. Yes, they have talent in that rotation. Jesus Luzardo has been inconsistent and can't stay healthy for a long period of time. Johnny Cueto is 37. Braxton Garrett I like, but he can get hit very hard as well. Max Meyer, who knows if we see him this year.
He won't be up this year.
There is questions at the back end of the bullpen. Dylan Floro was supposed to be the closer, but now it looks like A.J. Puck. I think if they stick with A.J. Puck, that's the right move. And yes, they did get Luis Arias, but they lost Pablo Lopez. And Luis Arias is good for batting average, but he's also going to see a whole new slew of pitchers that he has never faced before. So I don't expect him to hit 326 like he did last year. I think if he hit 290 and above, that would be a good first season from there. I think the Marlins are a poorly managed team, starting with the owners. There has been a lot of turnover over the years. They are a team that historically does not spend either. And I think that pattern kind of resonates through the locker room. Now, the one thing I will give you is with the new scheduling, they are not going to play the Phillies, Braves, and Mets as much. I think that helps them. They also are not going to play the Marlins or the Nationals as much, who are odds on the worst team in the Major League Baseball.
Yeah. So again, I mean, all those are super valid points, but
And you said I wouldn't have any.
The thing, yeah, but see, I'm gonna get rid of all those points right now because we're not talking about them winning the World Series. I'm not talking about them making the playoffs even, or even competing for a wild card spot. I'm talking about 76 wins, and that's still sub 500, right?
You're talking about something they haven't done in 5 full regular seasons.
They have not had the same talent that they have in the last few seasons. And the 2020 they made the playoffs. If that was
that was 60 games.
That's
I'm
what I'm
talking
saying.
about.
So
That's why I said full seasons.
Okay, that's just what I'm saying. That season.
If this was the 2020 season, the Nationals wouldn't have won the World Series.
So, and then another thing I did put, because I wasn't quite finished. I do have this is gonna. I think I've mentioned this to you before. Jazz Chisholm is my second. I have 2 National League MVP picks. I have Jazz 70 to 1 to win the National League MVP, and I have Jesus Luzardo 75 to 1 to win the American League Cy Young. And I do have something about their bullpen. This is my last point. Is their bullpen last year? I think they were around 21st or 20th in ERA. I can't remember. I didn't write it down. But they were 16th in Sierra, and they added Matt Barnes, who, as a Red Sox fan, Matt Barnes was trash last year, but I don't think Matt Barnes
He's better than Anthony Bender.
Yeah, so Matt Barnes is an addition to the bullpen, and they traded for AJ Puck, and they traded JJ Bleday.
I do like the AJ Puck trade.
I had never had any interest in JJ Bleday. I've always loved AJ Puck, and I think it's kind of funny that 2 of the Marlins really good pitchers that they have now both were like heading the Oakland organization of prospects the last couple of years. So I think they have an average bullpen that's actually improved from last year too. And 69 wins last year. And last year, the Marlins were awful. Like, as far as scoring runs, most of the season, you said their home run leader, 15 home runs. Like, I just need them to gain 7 wins, 8 wins,
That's
whatever.
easier said than done to gain 7 wins and have the Cy Young winner. We could go back and forth all day, but in October, one of us will be taking a victory lap.
All right.
And what would be funny is on MGM, the line is 76.5. So if they finished at 76 and I decided to bet that and we would both be winners, they won exactly 76 games.
Well, there'd be a nice handshake there.
Yep. The first one for me is the Detroit Tigers under 70.5 wins. Sorry, Marty Tallman, if you're listening to this or watching. I actually did text you about this. This is the highest I've seen on any site. It is on DraftKings right now. On the other sites, I've seen as low as 68.5. So I feel like there's a lot of value there. The thing about the AL, and we talked about this on one of our podcasts, besides the Athletics, there are no teams that are tanking. Even teams that might be underwhelming, like the Royals, they still have talent. The Orioles aren't the butt of the American League like they used to be. The Mariners are suddenly contenders. The Angels went out to spend this offseason. And I don't think Detroit got a lot better. I think there is going to be a lot of questions with Detroit's hitting. I know that they're going to still give Miguel Cabrera some playing time. This is his last year, kind of his send-off. But he's a shell of what he used to be. I have big questions about their starting rotation. Eduardo Rodriguez will probably pitch better than he did last season and more. He did take some time away. But behind that, they have Spencer Turnbull as their number 2. And Spencer Turnbull has been out the past year plus recovering from Tommy John surgery. Matthew Boyd is the 3rd. So this is his second stint of reclamation project. Matt Manning, the 4th. Michael Lorenzen, the 5th starter. I don't feel confident in any of those. I think the Tigers are a team that looked somewhat promising at a certain point when they signed Javi Baez, when they got Austin Meadows, who still doesn't have a home run for Detroit, by the way.
Yeah.
But I just think that there are so many holes on this team. I don't think that they are anywhere close to competing. I'm going to pull up the record last year, and I should have had this. I should have had this prior, but let me have this up here. So last year, the Tigers, I think their line last year was 76 and a half wins.
Yep.
They won 60. They won 66. The year before that, they went 77 and 85. So I'll give them credit on that, which is why I think that win total was inflated last year. But then in 2019, 47, 64, and 64 the year before that. So 4 out of their last 5 years, they've hit the under on that. And 2021 seems to be the big anomaly. I just don't think that they are anywhere ready to contend. I don't think they're in a rush to rush Casey Mize back. I just think there's a lot of holes on the team, and the fact that I found it at 70 and a half, and there's a 2-win difference on some other books, that's where I think you can get the value.
Yeah, and I think Tariq Skubal's not going to be back, maybe at all. I could be wrong on that, and Mize won't be back until at the very least the very end of the season. And they had a cake American League Central schedule last year. And they're going to have a harder schedule this year too. But I actually was on the Tigers over on wins last year. So this is a miserable year last year. I do think the Tigers offense cannot be any worse than it was last year. I think there's going to be some guys who do take a step forward. I think Riley Green is going to be better this year, and they were missing him for a couple months. He, I think, broke his foot or something in spring training last year. I think Spencer Torkelson is going to take a little bit of a step up. But I don't think that they can get to 71 wins step up. I think it's just another rebuilding year for the Tigers.
Agreed. And this is unfortunately what we see in baseball. And I think the ownership they had last year, I forgot the name of him, but when they fired their general manager midseason and he just threw him under the bus, it was a really bad look for the organization there. So, Nick, we agree on that. Next one. This is an interesting one. I don't know if I have an opinion one way or another. The Rays over 88 and a half wins at minus 110. Walk me through the reasoning on that.
So now, one thing about my card is some of these lines might not be up anymore. I did post this card to my Dub Club probably a month ago. I made this before Tyler Glasnow got hurt. So kind of bummed about that. But anyways, the Rays had 86 wins in 2022. On Fangraphs, they're 8th in Major League Baseball projected WAR. Take that for what it's worth, projections. They're going to have a softer 2023 schedule, a lot less AL East games. They were so banged up last year. Even the guys who were playing were not healthy. Like Wander, when he was playing, we talked about this on the other podcast. When Wander was playing, he wasn't right. Brandon Lau, I think, was hurt for most of the year too. Manny Margot, he's always hurt, but if they can get more games from him too, and Pete Fairbanks was out too, and a list of more players. They're also going to hopefully get Taj Bradley up at some point. They're hopefully going to replace Vidal Brujan with Curtis Mead, which will be a step up. The Rays have an elite bullpen. They always do, mixing and matching. All these guys who short arm everything and just crazy spin rates, and they just get guys out. The rotation when Glasnow is back, and I think he's only missing 6 to 8 weeks.
Only?
Yeah. Well, so anyways, when Glasnow gets back, they have a rotation of 2 SP1s, in my opinion, with Shane O'Mac and Tyler Glasnow when he's back, like I said. And I have a 200-1 Cy Young ticket on Jeffrey Springs. So they have Jeffrey Springs, Drew Rasmussen, Zach Eflin, who I love Zach Eflin. And Luis Patino is a former top pitching prospect. So I still like Luis Patino, and he's been solid in spring training. So he was kind of rushed to the big. So hopefully they got some more from him this year. And to also add to that rotation is if guys do get hurt, the Rays are notorious for their openers and spot starters, and they just seem to always find ways to buy outs, which they think of things differently than every other organization. And I think Kevin Cash and their analytics team does just an awesome job in getting scrappy wins. And despite all the injuries last year to their offense, they were 21st in runs per game, which is terrible. And they still won 86 games in probably the hardest division in baseball. Maybe you could say the NL East is just as hard. But so that's why I have the Rays. That's a 3-unit play. That's my biggest future other than the Carlos Rodon prop. But I'm all in on the Rays this year. And also, I don't know if it was written down in that thumbnail, but I have the Rays to make the playoffs, 1 unit. That's minus 165 on BetUS. And this is a really cool one that you said you wanted to hear about, Doc, is the Rays' first team to 10 wins. That's plus 950. On other books, it's 8-1. They open the season at the Trop versus the Detroit Tigers. Then they travel to DC and play the Nationals for another 3-game series. Then they go back to the Trop and play the Oakland A's. And then they stay in the Trop. They play the Red Sox, who they were 12-7 against in 2022. And then if they don't get those 10 wins there, they go to Toronto, who they were 10-8 against, which isn't great. But if they can seal it in that first game against Toronto, but I mean, theoretically, they could win 10 of their first 12 games.
Let me tell you, I love that more than anything you've said. I love the Rays first to 10 wins at plus 950. I mean, I'll probably throw some money on this. The Rays are so respected, like you said, for how they just utilize. They're so savvy and meticulous with how they run their baseball team for a team that doesn't have a high payroll. I think that this is probably the least amount of depth that the Rays have had in terms of pitching. Obviously, Glasnow is beginning the year on the injured list, but Shane Baz will miss the entire year.
Yep.
Same with Kittredge getting Tommy John surgery. I do think I like the investment in Eflin, but I don't think there's as much security as they've had before. I mean, the Eflin, I think, is the first multi-year free agent signing they've had in the last couple.
Yeah.
And then from just the hitting, I think there's a bunch of names there that are kind of retread outside of Wander Franco, who hasn't shown over a long period of time that he is, that he's consistent. And obviously the prospect pedigree, the upside. But a lot of these guys are kind of retreads. Christian Betancourt played for the A's last year, and they took a flyer on him. Harold Ramirez had a good stretch last year and with the Guardians prior, but he's on a 1-year deal for free agency. Jose Siri they got from the Astros. Now, I love Randy Arozarena. Manuel Margot is somebody that you can count on for spurts here and there, but seems to have bad hamstrings. I'm on the fence.
Yeah, I think this lineup, and this is, I mean, you hearing this, you're going to be like, Nick, you're losing your mind. I think it's really deep. Like this 1 through 9 is not going to be fun to get through. And you have your teams who 1, 2, 3, 4 is a nightmare. But then the bottom 5 is just like, okay, they're not getting anything from their bottom half of the lineup. I think every single guy in Tampa's lineup can give you something. And I really like that about them. They just keep everything moving. And I'm excited for them to be healthy this year. They also have 3 players that are top 20. I don't remember what I wrote down, that are projected in the upper echelon of WAR for the season. And it's Franco, Arozarena, and would you want to guess the third one, Doc?
Yandy Diaz.
Yep, it is.
This is what's wrong with WAR, but we'll see. I don't feel as passionately strong against that as I did with his other one. My next is Yankees under 94.5 wins, which you can find for minus 120 on Caesars. This line is still the same after the Rodon injury, after the Harrison Bader injury, and this is why I'm all over it. When you look at the Yankees' record last season, their over-under line was 92.5, and they obviously hit the over. But it's in large because of a fast start. In April, they went 15-6. May, they went 19-9. June, they went 22-6. The second half of the season, July, they went 13-13. August, they went 10-18. September, they went 17-8. In October, they went 3-3. A huge, huge driver of that was Aaron Judge's historic season. And his home run line is at 46.5, 45.5. And he could hit 48 home runs, and that's still 14 short of what he had last year. Now, also, once again, Rodon is going to begin the season on the injured list, likely missing at least the first month of the season. Nestor Cortez, is he going to be able to throw as many innings as he did last year? Lou Trevino, who their setup man, is beginning the season on the injured list. Clay Holmes, there is a little bit of, is he going to be able to do what he did last year? We're seeing the first half or the second half. Harrison Bader is out for opening day. And Anthony Rizzo's back is already locking up. And this is something that has plagued him throughout his entire career. And just when you look at the Yankees lineup, they have a couple of young studs with Oswaldo Cabrera and Anthony Volpe, who right now is not on the major league roster, but a lot of their players are above 30.
Oswald Peraza too.
Yeah, Peraza. But Rizzo is over 30. Donaldson's over 30. Aaron Judge is close to 30. Giancarlo Stanton is over 30. DJ LeMahieu is over 30. These guys are going to need more veteran days off. I think 94.5 wins is the Yankee tax, and I think it is because of how they did last year. But I see this team easily falling short of expectations.
So if you're listening in the beginning of the podcast, when I went down my list, I made this over bet before all these injuries started happening with Bader, Rizzo, and Rodon. So I'm kind of hoping that they hit the over, even though I am a Sox fan and I hate the Yankees. But but yeah, I still think the Yankees are going to have an easier schedule, just like I said with the Rays. So just playing like devil's advocate here. And Rodon isn't going to miss the whole year. So even what
how much time would you think he misses?
I bet he misses a month and a half.
That's a good amount of time, and I bet you he's on a innings limit as soon as he comes back.
Yes, but the Yankees do have some nice depth as far as filling in the gaps. Like last year, they were so banged up at the end of last year. And I do think that Oswald Peraza is going to get the call at the beginning of the year, and I think Volpe won't be far behind. And I think that's a massive upgrade from a Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, Josh Donaldson infield. And there's also a lot of rumors of Glaber getting traded. So take that.
That would be interesting. That would be interesting.
I think that the Yankees want the future of that team up now in Oswald Peraza and Anthony Volpe, which would be cool to see even as a Yankee hater. Well, like I said, I do bet with my money. It's not with my heart. So when I made this bet of the Yankees, that was a good bet with Rodon. But that right now, that looks like a really good bet, that 94.5 under.
I love it. I love it. Nick, give us your last pick here. The Padres over 92.5 wins. I don't think anybody's going to debate that. You found a pretty good line, but just walk us through the reasoning of, why you're following that.
Yeah, so this one I don't have a whole list of write-ups for. I don't think anybody needs me to tell them that the Padres are absolutely loaded this year. I love their top of the lineup, middle of their lineup's pretty good. The bottom of it's not great, but their starting rotation, even though Musgrove is out for supposed to only be a starter too, but their bullpen is great. Even they're gonna have a whole year of Josh Hader. Like I said, I don't have a whole lot of write-up with the Padres. But if you're cool with it, Doc, I was going to go over to talk about my Twins AL Central champs future, which that one was 3-1. And so I'll run down this really, really quick with the Twins. The Twins are 6th in projected American League team WAR. They have an improved rotation. They added Pablo Lopez, who shoved last night in the World Baseball Classic, by the way. They got Kenta Maeda back, and they added Tyler Mahle, who's going to be outside of the Great American Ballpark finally. And he was banged up at the end of last year, so they lost him. The Twins had a ton of bad luck last year. Byron Buxton was banged up. He always is. Jorge Polanco was hurt. Alex Kirilloff, who is already having wrist problems. Tyler Mahle was banged up at the end of last year, like I just said. Royce Lewis was up for like a month. Hopefully he's back in the second half and can contribute. And I love the Twins lineup 1 through 9. It's really deep. I'm not going to list all the names. I'm going to keep it moving along. Their bullpen was 9th in Sierra last year. And they added Jorge Lopez, who was a hot mess when he came over. But like I always say, adding the human element to things, getting traded, coming from teams and whatnot. I really like Bailey Ober, potentially in long relief. And Yohan Duran is just an absolute freak out of the bullpen. And I think, lastly, the Twins improved their defense a lot from last year. Last year, they were solid on defense, but by signing Christian Vasquez to play catcher instead of Gary Sanchez, you're getting an offensive upgrade and a defensive upgrade too. Joey Gallo, say what you want about Gallo, but he's pretty dang good in the outfield. And Michael A. Taylor too, on days where they're platooning him to play. But so I'm not going to talk a whole lot about the Guardians overachieving last year and how their rotation is going to be underwhelming this year. But
You know what? I like the Twins pick because you can throw out the Royals and the Tigers, and now it's really a 3-team race.
yeah.
And I think the White Sox expectations were so high last season
Hmm.
that they could win the division, but they're not the favorite. And I do think the Guardians overachieved, beating up on that kind of weak AL Central. So
Yeah.
Nick, I'm with you on that, and
And
especially if
that's
you're
3-1, so it's not like I'm betting minus 150 on it. So
Yeah, I'm with you on that. My last one, and Nick, I'm gonna get so much pride saying out of this. Red Sox under 98 or under 78 and a half wins. They're definitely not hitting the 98 at all. And you
yeah,
can find this on BetMGM. So when you look at the Red Sox, they are a team that has a lot of question marks. And it begins with what are they doing in that front office, because nobody knows. So their starting rotation is anchored by Chris Sale, who has not been able to stay healthy. Now, I know a lot of those have been fluke
freak
injuries.
injuries.
He
Yeah,
broke his thumb with a comebacker, but also those add up. And one of the things I think of Chris Sale was really good was his deception and just the delivery he had, and his velocity has gone down. But
it's been back
winding out
up
the
this spring.
rotation, I'm sorry.
It's been back up this spring.
It's been back up, but let's see how it stays over a long period of time. Then you look at the rest of the rotation. Corey Kluber, who we'll see what he has left in the tank. Nick Pivetta, the Jekyll and Hyde of fantasy baseball. Garrett Whitlock and James Paxton, who's already hurt.
Yep.
Then you
Both.
look
Yeah.
at and I want to say Kenley Jansen is a good closer when healthy. Kenley Jansen has heart issues come up more than anybody I've ever seen before, and that is not a good thing. And then I just look at that lineup. Adalberto Mondesi, an offseason acquisition, is going to begin the first month of the season on the IL as he recovers from a torn meniscus, somebody whose game is based off of speed. Justin Turner got hit by a pitch in spring training and had to get 16 stitches. He should be good for opening day, but you never know how he would do mentally, because that looks like it freaking hurt.
Yeah.
To begin, they have Masataka Yoshida, who has never played an MLB game before, so that's going to be a question mark. I like Alex Verdugo and I like Rafael Devers, but I don't think that this is a 79-win team. I think that there are just so many questions. There are so many players that are hurt. I think the offense lives and dies by Rafael Devers. I think the Red Sox are a team that could always surprise you. And if I'm wrong on this, I'm wrong, because the year that they won the World Series, nobody really expected them to.
Nope.
And you can say that as a fan too. I feel like you never know what you're going to get, because they won 108 and 54 that year and then dropped to 84 and 78. And then the year after that, in the pandemic 2020 season, went 24 and 36. And then they went 92 and 70. And then they went at 78 and 84 last year. So it is very hard to predict what you will get with the Red Sox. But I'm just looking at the talent they have on the team, what you've seen on paper. I think sometimes teams like the Red Sox and the Yankees have a little bit of an inflated win total just because of their fan base, because people want to see them do good. But just looking at that 40-man roster, it's not impressive.
So the Red Sox last year in their AL East schedule, they were 26 and 50. So they were 18 and 15 versus Central, 25 and 8 versus the American League East, and 9-11 in interleague play. But I'm not gonna totally pick this apart because I am a Sox fan. But I was not in on this over. I mean, watching this offseason was truly painful as a fan, losing Bogarts, losing JD. But I think having Tristan Casas up is going to be a massive upgrade to the offense. Devers just got paid. I think that was a huge cloud over the team last year, was the Bogarts not being extended, Devers not being extended. And there were just really just bad team chemistry last year with the Red Sox. I think Justin Turner is kind of going to be a little bit of an upgrade from JD. His stretches are just so hot and cold, and when he's cold, it's just really painful to watch. And I'm getting really excited for Masataka Yoshida. I really am. And that whole Japan team's been fun to watch in the World Baseball Classic. Always love Alex Verdugo. You're not going to get a ton of power from him, but I think he takes a step forward this year. Kike Hernandez has really embraced being a leader in the clubhouse, and he was hurt a lot for last year. And I like the Adam Duvall lottery ticket.
I do like that too, but
and that's their 7-hitter. Duvall is. I mean, like this lineup, their team is way deeper than you would think. I mean, Reese McGuire and Jorge Alfaro are 2 catchers who can hit the ball. And Jorge Alfaro was awesome to watch in the Dominican Winter League this offseason. And if you've kept up with the World Baseball Classic, you've seen some excitement from Yu Chang. He's a depth infielder, and Rob Refsnyder has been kind of a spark plug to the team last year. And like all these guys, they just bring a lot of energy. And if you've kept up with any of the spring training stuff, this Red Sox team, this is just the most fun I've seen a team have since 2013. And if you remember the 2013 Red Sox, nobody expected anything from them. And I would argue that's one of the worst teams to win the World Series of the last decade. Whereas I think the 2018 Red Sox were one of the best teams.
What about that pitching rotation? Who's going to step up for them?
In their rotation. So Chris Sale, this one I didn't post to my Dub Club or anything, but I did get a 100-1 Chris Sale Cy Young ticket in, which is at 50-1 now. But yeah, Chris Sale, I mean, his injuries have been so fluky. I think
Sale, but who else besides Sale?
Corey Kluber is going to be just fine. He'll have a mid-3s ERA, maybe a higher 3s ERA. Nick Pivetta, I'm not excited about Nick Pivetta. I love Garrett Whitlock, and he'll be back. Brian Bayo will be back. These aren't like season-long injuries for either of those guys. And they upgraded their bullpen last year. Their bullpen was, I mean, if you watch the Red Sox at all last year, the whole first half, they were in every single game, and it was blown by the bullpen. And they got rid of Matt Barnes. They got rid of a handful of guys who just blew up. And I think they made some improvements to the bullpen. And I think Chaim Bloom has made really some underrated moves that are going to contribute, or that are going to translate to wins. It's not the sexiest roster, but again, we're not talking about 90 wins here. And my ticket for them is over 77.5. So again, if the Red Sox win 78 games, we'll both be very happy.
Let me just say, when the Red Sox under and the Marlins under hit, Nick, I like you as a friend, but you might have to block me on all social media platforms. So
I think my subscribers will be pretty bummed too. Their wallets.
No, we'll make it work. But everybody that tuned in and listened to the pod, hopefully we're helping you out. Once again, this is something that Nick and I do for passion, and we put our money where our mouth is. And there is no way to have a crystal ball to know what's going to happen. We are just using the odds from sports books, from the various ones that we have, and making sure that we are just trying to do our due diligence. And please remember, anytime that you gamble, this is something that you should not be spending money that you don't have. That there are resources out there for treatment. Gambling addiction is real. So just keep that in mind, that this is something that is supposed to be fun and to throw a couple dollars here and there on, but nothing beyond that. But Nick, before we get out of here, I want to give you the chance, plug anything that you're working on, where they can find you on the socials, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, so everything on my Twitter at Nick's MLB Picks. If you go in my bio and click on my link tree, that could take you to my Dub Club page, where you can have all of my bets when I make them texted right to you, so you don't have to go on Twitter to see if you want to tell my bets, have to scroll and whatnot. It's really convenient. And then if you're a person who goes on Discord, I contribute to a Discord called Baddies in Vegas. So if you go on there, it's a cool Discord. It really is. There's a Google Docs you can click to sign up and just put your information in it. And I get credit for people who join that. So that's a pretty cool community too.
It's a great thing social media has done. Been able to network with some great people. But for everybody that tunes into Triple Play and Nick's Picks, thank you. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, follow us on the pod, and we will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks for tuning in.